Welcome, everyone. I am super excited for today's show. We are joined by State Representative Carey Hamilton, who serves District 87 on Indy's north side and is the Democratic Caucus Chair in the Indiana House. She was first elected in 2016. She sits on the Utilities, Energy, and Communications, Roads and Transportation, and Ethics Committees, and she founded the bipartisan Legislative Trails Caucus. This year, she authored a bipartisan bill expanding workforce development for returning citizens. Before the Statehouse, Carey led statewide environmental and recycling initiatives, and she later worked on climate tech. We are going to find out today with Carey, what is it like working in this Statehouse with this extremism and the supermajority? How was she able to get bipartisan laws passed? And how can we work together to save our communities? Please welcome Representative Carey Hamilton. Thank you so much, Carey, for being with us. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for the nice introduction. And thank you for having these really important conversations and sharing so much great information with Hoosiers. It's critical that we get the word out about what's going on at Statehouse, and you're doing an awesome job. So thank you.
I got to see you in person at the Floyd County Democrat Gala a few months ago. That was really cool.
Right.
You were the keynote speaker. You did an awesome job. And it just gave me hope for Indiana. I'm so thankful you represent us in this state, and it is a very, very difficult job. You are also extremely busy because you are doing all you can to make our state better, to make Hoosiers' lives better. And thank you for all that you're doing. Everybody have hope. Have hope on this discussion. We're gonna talk about utility bills. We're gonna talk about childcare. We're gonna talk about how you got bipartisan bills passed and what us regular people out there that aren't state house reps, how we can help save this state from being the bottom of so many lists that we should be at the top of.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. You were on the committee. What was it called? The Utilities. You're on this Energy and Telecommunications.
Energy and Communications Committee. Yeah, we call it Utilities Committee. Yeah.
We've done 3 shows. I've done 3 shows on utility bills and data centers, and like everybody's bills are rising. Most people's bills are rising in Indiana, and then they're rising across the country for very specific reasons. Utility companies, mega companies that need a lot of electricity to run AI and stuff are doing a really good job of infiltrating our state houses and getting bills passed that help them and hurt regular everyday people paying our utility bills. Can you tell us what's going on at the State House and what you're trying to do?
Yeah, well, so Sarah, it's been like now several years of the Republican supermajority pushing forward and advancing almost always pretty much on a partisan line legislation that will lead to increased utility rates. And it just has piled up over time. Now, this past year, it kind of snowballed. And so we're going to have, or earlier this year, I should say, we're going to have even more challenges with rate increases coming. But, you know, I think of bills like way back in like, it was either 2017 or 2018. This is a small example, but it starts to tell the story. There was a program in place that most states had in place at the time that if you put solar panels on your house, that extra energy goes back to the grid, and you got a rebate for that energy that goes to the grid. Well, the utilities didn't like that because they thought of it as kind of competition. And so they did away with that rebate. They significantly reduced it. So it makes it more expensive and harder for people to install solar. Well, why that matters for everybody, not just the people installing solar, is that when that energy goes back to the grid in people's neighborhoods, it's the most cost-effective type of energy, and it's at peak energy demand times. And so if we're creating extra low-cost energy at peak times, that helps the utilities not have to build special plants for peak energy generation. It's creating low-cost energy that goes straight to the grid and is not lost. So when energy is generated 300 miles away and transported into a community, you lose a whole lot of electrons along the way. You don't lose it if it's just going right out into the neighborhood. So that's just an example of one earlier decision. And then you jump ahead to several bills that have made it easier for utilities to pass on rate increases to customers when they make different types of investments, even if they're investments that maybe they should have to cover because of decisions they made in the past. And then this year, Sarah, this is what kind of kills me. the Republican supermajority advanced and passed legislation that will pass on the cost of designing and planning for small modular reactors, even if they're never built. So that could be hundreds of millions of dollars that ratepayers will cover for something that's never complete. And here's why we worry about it being complete, because there's not a single small modular reactor operating in the United States. Now, I'll tell you, I'm not actually opposed to them. I just don't think ratepayers should be on the hook for the the first adopters,
and that we don't have them
experimenting.
They're not actually up and running. They're not actually up and running.
Yes,
so there's always a chance that it won't actually happen. So maybe we shouldn't pay for something that's not going to happen, or may take 20, 30, 40 years to happen. I thought big companies took out loans from banks and stuff. Like, isn't that how a big company is supposed to work? Why are big energy companies trying to make us pay for their infrastructure? Like, I didn't think that was how things worked.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Unless legislatures regulate in a way that gives all of the benefit to the utilities. And that's what's been happening. So, and I just want to hit on this point with a little more detail. There was one proposed SMR that was being designed in Idaho. Over years, it became so expensive that they killed the project.
Wow.
It wasn't just the expense of building it. They realized once they built it, the energy would be multiple times more expensive than, say, solar energy. So why in the world would you invest in something that's not going to be even built for at least 10 years? And if it's built, it's so wildly expensive, no one's going to want to buy that energy. When we could open next year, community solar, rooftop solar, different types of solar projects, or other energy, right? Gas, etc. That's much less expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have solar at our house. We invested around 6 years ago, I think.
Oh, good
and
for you.
we got national cuts, tax cuts for a little while, but we're still paying for those. And it was very difficult working with Duke Energy to get the solar. They delayed us. I think they charge us $10 a month just to take our solar from us. Like, they're charging us and they're taking our extra energy. So we don't make it very efficient or helpful for Hoosiers to have solar. As a person who has solar myself, I can tell you that's true. Seems like if people were actually fighting for us like you are at the legislative session or at the House, that they would pass bills to make it so it was easier for us to get solar for the reasons you just mentioned instead of harder. And that if you look at the evidence, the science, the facts, what they're trying to do doesn't make any sense and will just keep raising our energy bills. And I'm telling you, my neighbors cannot afford their energy bills to keep going up.
That's right. That's right. And there's another tool that a lot of states have adopted. It's called community solar. I've authored a community solar bill for the last couple of years. And what that means, it's different than big, huge industrial solar farms. That's one type of investment. It's a smaller, but maybe like a couple of acres investment near a community where people can sign up and then they get credit for that cheaper energy on their utility bill. So it brings down their utility cost because solar is cheaper than gas or coal or obviously nuclear if we were to ever have that, small modular nuclear. So many states have passed that legislation. And it is it's straight up a consumer friendly legislative piece. There are a lot of stakeholders that support it. But I can't get a hearing on this bill because utilities don't like it. And Republicans do what the utilities want them to do.
Yeah. And they
not all Republicans. I'll tell you what, that Republican supermajority, that's what they do.
The Republican supermajority. Yeah. Do you know the percentage? It's over 70% Republican in Indiana Statehouse, correct?
So the House is 70% Republican and the Senate is closer to 80% Republican.
Okay. Yeah. So it's very hard. You can't get anything passed without bipartisan support. And on this issue, the utility companies have lobbyists and lawyers and a lot of money to pump into the Republican Party and each elected representative. And then to say thank you, the representatives just kind of take the bills tell me if this is true, because I think this is what's happening. I think the energy companies are sort of writing the bills, and they're sort of just handing them over to the Republican people that don't even read them or understand them. And then they're very quickly all signing yes to it, not even realizing the terrible things that they just did to everybody. Is that
Well,
sort of what
the
I think
fact that they
happens?
write the bill is correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. That happens a lot. It's not ideal to say the
So
least. But I will
the
say,
energy companies are help writing the bills, you guys, that
I
are
will
making
I
our
will
energy prices go.
say Democrats stand up in committee and on the House floor and explain the downside to our
Good job.
constituents, and Republicans still vote for it. So they do know when it's all said and done if they're paying
Ah,
attention. Now they might not want to believe us,
right.
but we're telling the facts about the ratepayer impact, and they're not hearing it.
So I ran for state house against Karen Engelman, and I'm planning on running again. State House 70, which is very gerrymandered. It's very hard for a Democrat to win. And I only saw her at just, I think three things total that I went to out of dozens and dozens of bipartisan meetups for candidates. And one time I got to talk for 2 minutes, and then she got to talk for 2 minutes. So that's the only time I've ever heard her speak in person. And I spoke about saving public education and about how we need to stop defunding public. And then she got up after me and just said completely untrue things. And that's when I realized she believes lies. Oh no, this person that's defunding our schools in Harrison County, we don't have charter or private schools in my county, but we do have great public schools, but they keep getting defunded. And I tried to explain that. I it was really blown away with, oh no, she believes fake things. Do you think that is more of a problem than we realize, that these elected representatives are hearing the false narrative and they're just believing it because the truth is sort of painful?
Well, yeah, I do. I do. And to that, just to tease out that example, when it comes to choice, what we hear is choice, choice, choice. But the reality is, either like in your community, there is literally no choice, or in a community like mine, maybe there looks like there's choice because there's a private school that accepts vouchers, but the private school tuition is still $5,000 more than the voucher covers. So most families still don't have that choice, right? Because who has 5,000 extra dollars
And
to make
a
up the
lot of
difference?
us need a bus to pick up our kids.
Yeah, so many reasons it's not a choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
our public schools are good. And they were
yes.
great 20 years ago before we took a wrench to trying to destroy them, because I'm a former teacher and I taught the
Oh,
standards. And at that time, a long time ago, when I graduated in 2003, we had some of the best standards in the whole country. So it
mm,
wasn't that long ago, we were
right.
one of the best in public education. We can get back there, but it's hard to remember. But
I, I
if we
love
start
that you have
investing
that
in public
perspective.
again, yeah,
Yeah.
if we start investing in public again, very quickly, we're going to be at the top again. And that's one of the reasons I started Project Next, to try to shine a light, because most people I meet on the street have no idea our elected representatives are voting to defund public schools, and they're voting to allow our energy bills to go up. Most people don't know. And so we kind of have to educate everybody in like a nice way. We can't just assume everybody knows, because I promise you they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to, I'm never one to literally demonize the other side. I don't,
Right.
but these are policy decisions that are being made, and people need to understand who's making them. Um, you know,
When I go to Republican events, which I go to now, especially in Floyd County, where I've made some friends, um, and I speak to great people that vote
yeah,
Republican that are very nice, and I mention public education, they don't know. And then I mention energy bills, they don't know.
that's right.
And that's, I think, the secret weapon that we don't realize is happening across the state. They're voting Republican thinking these people care about us, thinking they're making laws and helping us. We even get taxpayer dollar funded flyers in the mail that show, look how great our state reps are. I
That's
get one
right.
about Karen Engelman, and I'm like, that's not really correct. She acts like she funds education, but she doesn't split up public and private. It's
That's
just all
right.
in one. And I'm like,
Okay.
no, you're defunding public education,
Okay,
So
Sarah, we can't hit on this topic without reminding everybody. And again, this is probably something most people don't know. It's kind of in the weeds, but it's really important that in this last budget that we just passed in the spring, and it went into effect July 1st, that $200 million Republicans found, 200 million new dollars to send the very wealthiest families, even billionaires' kids, to private school. And then we're cutting early learning and access to affordable childcare. That's the Republicans' priority, because that $200 million to send the very wealthiest elites to their elite private schools that no one else can afford, even after they get a voucher, that is part of their ideology of choice. That's what that means.
And they're not telling people. Like,
it's
my
not
friend,
about the average family having choice.
Right. My friends go to events where Mike Braun and Micah Beckwith speak. They get pictures with them. And they say, the governor at these Republican events says, it's time to buckle down and be extra conservative with our dollars. We need to save, save, save. And they're like, yep, yes, sir, you got it. And then I'm like, but wait, look at what you just said. We're funding the wealthiest people to send their kids to private schools that we're already going to send to them anyway.
Yep.
How is that conservative?
It's a $7,000 per wealthy family subsidy, and they're cutting for working families.
Do you know how much that money would help my town that
Oh,
is struggling to stay housed? People,
yeah.
food is so expensive, our utility bills are so expensive, housing is so expensive, and yet we're dumping money into wealthy people that don't need it.
That's right.
Yeah, it's very upsetting to me because I live right down the street from a food pantry that a church put up. Very nice, sweet people at that church.
I like that.
And I go past the second they put food in it, it's like 5 minutes later, it's gone.
Oh,
These
Sarah,
people
and this
are
is happening
hungry.
everywhere.
These people
Yeah.
are hungry, and yet we're doing this. And they're so hungry, they don't know because they're too busy just trying to survive to research their candidates and maybe they're not even voting. Maybe they can't get off work. We're making it
That's
harder and
right.
harder to vote.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, I know I can feel your pain and your frustration because you know exactly what's happening. You are a very intelligent, wonderful, amazing woman, and you are fighting for us. And this is what we're up against. Yep. So let's
Yep.
talk about childcare because
Yeah.
that is another problem. If you're going to take a voucher in my county and you're going to stay at home, you're getting a virtual school voucher. So then your kid stays at home and in my opinion does not get as good education as they would get at the local public schools here, who I'm very close to. And again, I'm a former teacher with my master's in education, and I went through 1 year of virtual school with my son during the pandemic, and he didn't learn a thing because we were too stressed out with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not impressed with the virtual charter schools that our state is pounding money into. And then childcare is a real issue. It is very expensive to get quality childcare here. And so I know a lot of parents, one of them stays at home with the children. So can you talk about what's going on with childcare in Indiana?
Yeah. So before I touch on childcare, you brought up virtual, and I just want to remind here's something that most teachers don't know.
Yeah.
There was a $100 million approximately virtual school scam in Indiana just a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I'm forgetting the exact number, so give or take, it was several tens of millions of dollars that was stolen from the state by a vendor who made up students and made up teachers and made up expenses, and then bought houses in Florida. There was a lawsuit. We'll probably never get that money back. I think someone might be in jail now, but it was swept under the rug. That's our taxpayer dollars.
And that's because the people that are running these charter schools are they're writing the bills. They're putting loopholes in there. They're dumping money into it and they're giving it to our representatives to pass into law. And then since they wrote the bills with the loopholes in it, they know how to make the money. So a lot of these charter schools are scams. And even if they aren't great. So
yeah. Okay.
I mean,
so
yeah,
we got that point in there. It's a lot. So early learning and access to childcare. So as you know, Sarah, there is endless data showing that when kids basically like cradle to K have not cradle, but you know what I mean, like young children to kindergarten have access to a learning environment, a healthy environment, high quality childcare and early learning, that they will have a much higher chance of success in life. They'll achieve more education. They'll do better in school, however long they're in school. They're less likely to be in the criminal justice system, to have issues in school, et cetera. And makes it both access to childcare and early learning. It makes that a super smart investment for the state. That piece that's going to help our kids succeed, which helps our families succeed. And then it's just a flat out smart economic investment just from the immediate impact on our workforce, because parents can't work if they don't have access to affordable childcare.
Right. And why work when it's about the same cost as the childcare?
Exactly. Right. And by affordable, it means they have to be able to also bring home money to pay the rent and pay for the food and pay for everything else, the expenses of life. So the State Chamber of Commerce, just to put a fine point on this economic argument, one of their top issues the past couple of years, so the state business organization that comes to lobby the Statehouse said, we need, as a state, to make sure communities have access to affordable, high-quality childcare. But even with that business voice, we didn't make progress. And in fact, in 2025, so this year, we went backwards in the state budget and cut childcare support for families, whether it's making sure that more facilities can stay open in our state, or the cost is affordable for families, it's subsidized to different degrees based on their income. That's most of it's gone away now, both between the budget and then more recently, just last week, Governor Braun cut that subsidy even more. I don't understand it. And we know that means some facilities are just going to outright close because they can't afford to stay open with less per kid. They already weren't having their costs covered. And then parents can't make up the difference anymore. It's really bad. So that hurts our workforce. Again, this is just straight up smart economics, Sarah. Just for our businesses to have employees in the shop every day, whatever it is, right? Just to have those parents in the workforce to support their families and help their families thrive. So it's like insult to injury. Kids don't have this high quality environment anymore that's going to help them thrive in life. Families can't work or can't work as much. So they're hurting. It's harder to pay the rent. It's harder to pay the bills. This is a lose-lose for Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay. So all these major cuts. And to be clear, Sarah, we didn't have a strong childcare program in the first place.
Right. But now it's even worse.
We desperately needed to get better, and we're moving backwards.
I know something that Tim Peck's brought up is we get all these graduates from our top schools, Bloomington and Purdue and all the other great schools in our state. A lot of those people, once they get their good degrees with us, are moving out of the state for reasons that you're mentioning. Why would they want to start a family here when, one, women don't have access to health care?
That's right.
So getting pregnant in Indiana is now more dangerous than in a blue state. And then, two, you can't get good quality childcare, and it's going to keep getting harder. And then just all the things we're doing at the state level to pass laws to make it to hurt the people who live here. These intelligent people graduating college are going to make a decision based on their families and, in their futures, and they're leaving. We have proof of that a lot of them aren't saying. It's very hard to get a good quality OBGYN to stay in Indiana.
It really is. Yeah.
And you're seeing the reason. You understand the reasons why we're seeing people don't want to live here anymore. And what do we do? What do we do to encourage the people that you are working with to do better?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I'm waiting for state leadership that has a vision. I mean, I, along with my Democratic colleagues in the House, we have a vision for an Indiana where families have access to affordable childcare, where the K-12 system is strong and the public schools are funded across our state, where healthcare is accessible. And I'll tell you what, the other thing that happened in the state budget is we cut support for Medicare and Medicaid even more. So we're going to have longer wait lists for people who otherwise would have access to assisted living, for example. Their families are not going to be struggling with senior citizens who have needs that they can't support, across the gamut. But what that also means is that puts a big strain on our rural healthcare system. We've already had, just in the last few years, we've had 5 maternity wards close across the state.
Yeah, we don't have OBGYN in our Harrison County Hospital.
I mean, that's just downright scary for folks. If I was a woman pregnant in Harrison County right now, I would be really nervous about that.
Yeah.
You never know when you need, like, ideally, you've got 10 minutes away, you've got a doctor. Well, my goodness,
And
if it's an hour away, if it's 2 hours away, heaven forbid,
yeah,
that's
Carrie, I
dangerous.
had a triplet pregnancy. I lost one at
Oh,
the end and I almost died. Our little girl died at week 29 of pregnancy, and then I had him at week 34. And this was in 2018 when we still had our access to healthcare. And thankfully, the Harrison County Hospital still had doctors there. But I went to a team of doctors in Louisville with Norton. I had to see so many specialists. And so, believe me, I am very worried about the
no,
lack of
no.
OBGYN in our county. And then reports show we have a very good chance of this hospital closing in a couple years because of the recent
Oh,
bill
is
that
it
was
on the
passed.
list?
Yes, it's on the list, and so is the other one. I've got 2 hospitals 20 minutes away from me, one in Salem and one in Harrison County and Cordon. Both of those will probably close. So,
Heartbreaking.
it's
It's heartbreaking.
heartbreaking, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, what do people do when they call 911? How long is it gonna take them to get them care?
So let
It's
me say this, just say it real clear. Democrats at the Indiana State House would pass policies if we were in charge that would make sure that rural hospitals stay open, that maternity wards stay open in all of our communities.
and this bill isn't going to go into effect until after the next election.
Well, that's the other part. So I was just that honestly, Sarah, there's also pain just coming from the state budget, but you're talking about the big bad bill.
National one, yeah, the national
And
one.
you're absolutely right. So that's going to make it even worse. So we already
So
in Indiana, we already have bad news from the state budget. And then it's going to get much worse when President Trump's big bad bill goes into effect just after the midterms. Um, and that'll be the death blow for many more hospitals.
So the answer is always the same when I'm talking to people like that. The answer is we get as many people as possible to vote in
Yes.
November 2026. And for Indiana, in order to save Indiana, we need to mostly be electing Democrats because the Republican supermajority is kind of bullying their party. Even if there were people that wanted to vote correctly, they bully them. Look at what they've done to Ed Clear, who is a friend of mine, and he's our state house representative just south of me. Look at what they've done to
Friend of
him
mine
when he
too.
tries to
Yep.
stand up for what is right. They take him off committees, they hurt him, they go after him, they bully him. So, in order to stop that from happening, we have to switch parties. The state has to stop blindly voting R, and we
And
can do this.
we
This
can
is
do this. And
possible because you guys are up for election every 2 years.
that's right. And let me share something that but I think a lot of folks who just um aren't in the weeds like we are don't understand. And that
Sure.
is because they don't have any, how would they? And
Right.
that is, well, first of all, it's a reminder to folks who've been around for a while. Like I'm 53. So
You
I've
look
been a Hoosier
amazing.
for a long time. And I remember when Democrats were in charge. And I think all Hoosiers who are of a certain age remember that Democrats in Indiana are pretty practical. We are generally moderate and willing to work together to get things done for Hoosiers. We are Hoosiers. We are Hoosiers. And
You mean
people,
you care about the people in the state as
I
opposed to
do
just your
desperately.
political
Yes.
party? You compare you yeah. What a
I
thought.
want
Wouldn't
our
that be
communities
nice?
in every corner of the state to thrive, Sarah.
You
I do.
care about everybody, all humans? Mind blowing. Wouldn't that be great if everybody was like that?
Yeah. And as Democrats, and this is happening all over the country, get demonized as, they'll pick out one thing that one super liberal person in one East Coast city said. And, maybe that makes sense for their community. It's just not Indiana, but we get painted with that brush. And it's just
Yep.
silly. It's silly that anyone would think that of
There's
me or
only
anyone
2
else.
political parties. There's
Right,
only
right,
2
right, right.
parties. Yeah, the people on the Democrat, we are very different. We are a big tent. And yeah, you're saying you want to just like provide better childcare for people and help our energy bills to go down and maybe help the environment too while we do that instead of just giving big businesses every single thing they want while they
Yeah.
like trash our state. That's another thing about this data stuff. It's really bad for the environment. It's bad for our air, it's bad for our water. And it's like, don't we want our children to live here? Like,
Well,
don't
and
we?
let's talk about that. I'm so glad you brought that up, Sarah, because my background's in the environmental field. And
Yeah, that's
my
awesome.
background's the reason I worked in the environmental field is because I care about human health. And I think that doing the right thing for the environment ultimately is always good for the economy. But most importantly, it's about human health. So I as a young woman in my early 20s, I started to understand that. I really dug into learning about toxins in the environment that cause cancer. My dad died of cancer when I was 4.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And so then, thank you. And so then I realized, as I was learning, I realized, oh my gosh, we are creating cancer clusters around the country. We're creating all kinds of problems because of toxins that aren't necessary. I believe in the innovation of our economy of the United States, our ability to innovate our way out of using bad chemicals, for example. And that's happened time and again, but you have to regulate those chemicals in order to have the innovation happen. And so this is about people. It's not about, a fuzzy owl in California in the woods. They're the cutest things. And I love them, whatever they are. But that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about Hoosier mamas who are pregnant and being able to have healthy babies because they have exposed to toxic chemicals.
Yeah, I tell my kid, I'm like, I don't know whether we should be eating the fish in the pond next to our house because we can just, Indiana law have made it so we can just dump tons of stuff into the water and there's no checks and balances to make sure our water's safe. It's like, and then, the plastics, that stuff's scary. That's all in us. And yeah, we've made really poor choices because we've let companies that want to make a profit get into our local governments, our state governments, and pass things that are hurting us. We can take it back. That's the good news. We can vote it better if we knew about it. But Hoosiers are hurting so bad right now. My question is, do they know what's happening? And I'm saying most of us still don't. So we got to get out of our bubbles and we got to talk to people and tell everybody, do you know what's happening to our water? Do you know what's happening to our environment? Don't we want our children to live here? Let's vote better.
Yeah. And you know what happens when companies get told they need to do things without, deadly chemicals, et cetera, or toxic chemicals? They innovate. They don't go away. They innovate. And they make things smarter and better. And then they say, we are a zero waste facility and we are a and they're proud of it. And they should be.
And we did this for a while. We were cleaning up the country. We were changing policies across the country. It was very favorable to care about the environment. But since it's been turned into a political issue where one side thinks it's great to pump out as much bad stuff as possible, and they just keep saying, we're fine. Let's just not look at the science. We're fine. And then the other side is like, shouldn't we do something? But then they just, they just point fingers, name blaming and all the stupid stuff you're talking about being too extreme. And it's like, shouldn't we put Americans first and protect our water and our air and our land? It's just basic common sense. And it seems like we've lost that in the last few years.
Very well said. Yeah.
I appreciate your approach to let's just do common sense things. You're very busy. You're doing a ton of stuff. I saw you on, I think you did Gary's podcast, Gary Snyder. What types of things are you doing to fight for us, for Hoosiers?
Well, I have been able to do some bipartisan work.
Let's talk about that.
I feel really good about. So you mentioned that I've launched 2 bipartisan caucuses. 5 years ago, I launched the Bipartisan Trails Caucus, which you mentioned, and that was really rewarding work. I reached out to colleagues on both sides of the aisle and got a lot of support to launch this caucus. And then right after we launched, the pandemic hit and some federal money was starting to flow to Indiana. And the legislature had never put any money towards trails ever. Governor Holcomb had, to his credit, but it was running out. That pot of money was about to end, the Next Level Trails program. And so I brought our caucus together to fight for some of those federal dollars for the state to start, for the legislature to start to invest in the budget every year. And we put $90 million over 2 budget cycles towards trails investments across the state. And I feel so good about that work because what we know about trails is even if you don't use them, they're good for local property values. They're good for local economic development. They're good for public health for the folks who do use them.
Yeah, even if you don't use them, if your neighbors use them and then their quality of life, their mental health is better, it helps keep the community safer.
Yeah.
Well,
and people love living near trails. So property values go up in all the neighborhoods near trails. And we see everywhere they go in, you see little nodes improve of economic development. So if there are some small businesses along what was once an old rail bed or was no trail there, suddenly there's local businesses pop up. And this just happened up the road from me. We had an old strip mall that was half empty. There was a predatory lender at the end of the strip mall. And now it's a locally owned cafe. And there's a locally owned bakery, and there's a locally owned record shop. All would have, and they've reinvested in the strip mall. So now people come down the trail and they can go into the cafe or the bakery.
So the trails are helping to bump up local economy, local businesses. It's helping the actual community where these trails are. That's exciting because we're about ready to open. We're about ready to open trails in Salem. I need to see if I can get somebody to come on about that. I bet it's going to help. Like Salem, Washington is a beautiful little town. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's got like a square. It's got a bunch of independent little restaurants and stuff. It's adorable. So I think this is about ready to happen to this beautiful.
I love it. And I actually came down for the Monon South groundbreaking about a year ago, just over a year ago. Very exciting. That was near Floyd's Knobs.
Oh, neat.
And it was just,
and maybe this is the Monon. I don't know.
It might be the Monon South.
It might be it because they're taking like a railroad track and paving, and they've paved it. Yeah, and it's going to open soon. Right. I think you can already walk on it, but like they haven't had the official opening. I don't think so. It's pretty exciting. Yeah, thanks for helping with that.
So
how were you able to get Republicans on this committee, and how were you able to get it passed? Because to us following national politics, we look so divided. It looks like this stuff never happens. You just did it. So how?
Well, we do. So despite lots of challenges and partisan things that happen at the Statehouse, sadly, we do still have relationships. And for example, back the first budget that we got, those first ever state legislative dollars, I was in close dialogue with the budget writers. I was on the budget committee at the time. I worked with trails advocates in communities across the state, so including down in your neck of the woods, whether it's the local town, transportation folks, or a trails group or whatnot. They're all connected. There's the Indiana Greenways Foundation, for example, that connects a lot of folks, Parks and Rec Association of Indiana. So they became allies in this work, and they reach out to their representative, and say, hey, why don't you join the Trails Caucus? Why don't you support this work? So that was really rewarding. And then just being, in those conversations at the moments when the budget's being finalized was critical. And we got it done. And so I think making those arguments about local economic development and quality of life and property values and public health, that resonates with everyone. I think
Andy Brashear just made this point where he said, take the politics out of things, put people first. And that's what you're doing. And I just want to give you so much credit. I hope that you feel good that you're doing this, and it's really hard, especially in our government today, in our state government and our national government. But I'm just so thankful you're doing it. And I really encourage everybody else to do this. I'm doing it locally. I'm just going to Republican events and meeting like a commissioner. And I'm just like, I've heard so many bad things about this person. And I will go ahead and go up and have like a 20-minute conversation about mental health and police officers with them. And then I come away with, I think a lot of the things I was told was incorrect. But I also think they believe some things that aren't true. But I believe some things that aren't true. I haven't figured out yet. And so I'm kind of blown away with, I think I have been told false things about people that are local Republicans. And if I wouldn't have went to this Republican fundraiser a couple weeks ago, and if I wouldn't have been brave enough to walk up to them and introduce myself and talk about things that we both care about together, I wouldn't have figured it out. And so I think this is holding back the Democratic Party in Indiana, in my opinion. Our beliefs that every single person that votes is bad.
Oh, yeah.
I'm finding out that's not true. And I'm also finding out that if we stop the conversation, we're stopping what you're doing. We're stopping the compromise, and we're stopping good things from happening.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. I think, I think most of us have friends and family on the other side of the political spectrum. I certainly do. And we just have to always remember that. I mean, we're all real people.
People,
and we just can't demonize each other. And we have to keep those conversations going. And I commend you for going to those Republican gatherings and meetings where you're meeting.
And I don't go by myself. It's too much on me. I make sure I take at least one person that cares about me so that I'm not alone.
Okay.
Because,
Good.
so it's not like I'm just marching in there. It's just like, no, because I almost didn't go and I found someone to go with me. So it's hard, but now it's not going to be as hard the next time because now I made some more friends,
Yeah. Yeah. And we can't change hearts and minds if we're not in dialogue.
That's what I'm saying. And we have to save Indiana. And in one way to save Indiana is we're going to have to talk to our Republicans or our people that aren't voting, and we're going to have to teach them what's going on. I kind of get annoyed. It's like a human fault, in my opinion, where as soon as we learn something, we think everybody else knows it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, there's a lot of things I don't know, and I'm okay with saying I don't know them. That's another thing we do. We don't like to admit we don't know something, and we just need to be like, I don't know about that. And then we need to teach every single person. And it's okay if if we get a couple little facts a little mixed up. We're so scared of being wrong, but we got to go out there. If not, we're going to keep letting these awful bills get turned into law here in Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yep. I'm really thankful for you doing this work. And I have a question about what it's like at the Statehouse. Are you making friends with Republicans? Are you friends with a bunch of them? Do you take time to care about their families and their lives and to talk to them? And do you see that helps to sometimes get bipartisan things passed?
Yes, and I'll be real candid here. So when I was first elected in 2016, so coming into the Statehouse in 2017, I still had kids at home. I was juggling a lot, and I didn't. I had to say no to a lot of the social gatherings.
That makes sense.
I had to prioritize. I was going to do my legislative role and my mom role and make it work. And so I kind of lament the fact that I didn't have as much time because a lot of legislators. So I'm in Indianapolis, the capital, right? So I come home every night.
Yeah, that's nice.
Most legislators, and as a mom, that was huge. But if you're driving in and staying in Indianapolis,
windy.
Downtown,
if you're Windy Chesser, it's a little over 2 hours away to drive.
Yeah,
so she's having to stay at a hotel. And I think she has a senior daughter. I don't know if she has more.
She does.
Yes. And so I know it was very hard for her to be away from her daughter. During these times. So I am grateful that you live close enough. You don't have to do that. So it is a sacrifice to be a state rep.
But when you're driving in and staying downtown for several nights, you go to all those social things. And I wasn't. So I'm going into more detail than maybe you needed. But
no, that's interesting. I want to know.
But when I have had the chance because I've been on a committee with someone or for other reasons, gotten to know, yes, absolutely. And I cherish those relationships. I will also say it has gotten harder over time to forge those relationships. And here's why. When I first came in, most Republicans had served both in the minority and in the majority.
Oh.
And so they had inherently a little more respect and relatability to my role.
Empathy, because they had been the minority before and they knew what that felt like to not have the power.
That's right. But now folks come into the Statehouse, and there are kind of two big differences. One, they come into the party of complete power, and that's all they know as a leader. And two, especially for younger members, and I don't mean to paint too broad of a brush, but you'll see why I'm mentioning this. They've grown up more in this climate of division and of kind of just tweet storms and all of that. And it just makes it harder. I think ultimately it's possible, but it's just a little more challenging to build a relationship with someone who comes in sort of maybe inherently demonizing you because that's how they've sort of grown up in politics the last few years as it's gotten so divided. And it's really sad. And I hope we can, I love having this conversation because I think we have to all, those of us who care about it, and hopefully the majority of people, that we work towards bridging that divide more and more over time.
Yeah, I really am trying to just like fix Indiana. I'm trying to use, the media company Tim Peck and I made to try to do all we can to fix this state that we love and that we live in and that our families are living in. And one way is what we just talked about, going across the aisle, making friends with Republicans, especially those Republicans in power. Like, I'm trying to meet Republicans that are commissioners, county council, that are doing stuff, and talk to them and make sure they understand all sides of the argument instead of just their side that they're hearing. And so you're saying, yes, do that, but it's hard. And then there's the other way to do it. And that's the way I think Jesse Brown does really well. Do you know him? He's an Indy city councilor. He's going to be on the show on Monday to talk more about the ways he does this. But I want to talk about this with you because it's just so interesting to talk to someone who actually has political power in our state. So Jesse does a good job of pointing out the facts in the Indy City Council, which is the majority Democrats, but they're still sometimes not voting the way that the majority of Indianapolis people would like. And so he kind of shines a light on it and puts political pressure on them to vote better. And right now they're trying to vote down, hopefully, this data center from getting built in, is it Franklin Township? Franklin? Yeah. And so, and that's still happening right now. So can you talk about that? So you try to be friends with them, but there's political division and they won't talk to you and they think you're monsters. What's the other way to put pressure on them to get them to be better, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know if this is exactly the answer to your question, but you just reminded me of something that I think is worth sharing. And that is, just yesterday, I was, and also during the legislative session, on the Rob Kendall show, which is talk radio in out of Indianapolis market, but I think you can hear it. I've got a cousin in Floyd's Knobs who listens to it.
Oh, neat. That's great.
And she's a Republican. And
you still love her.
That's right. I love her. Rob it's very much a right-leaning show, but he is paying attention to what's happening in the Statehouse, and he's frustrated with Republican supermajority.
I'd say that's the best thing for you to do, to go on right-leaning media and speak out about how these things are hurting everybody. So I'm so glad you did that.
He's calling out Republicans as a right-leaning commentator for the utility fiasco that they've put us in. And he was frustrated with the property tax conversation during session. We talked about that. So that's happening in that way on the Republican side. I'm sure there are other examples, but that's I'm most familiar with that voice here in Indianapolis, coming out of Indianapolis.
That's amazing. Okay, I thought of one more thing I wanted to talk about before we got off. SB 1 is probably one of the most damaging bills that has been passed in Indiana that I can remember. And we're still figuring out the way it's going to hurt us. And I am confused about it. And if I am confused about it, and I am making it my mission to interview people that teach me stuff about government in Indiana, then I imagine a lot of people are. So I'm going to explain what I think is happening, and I'd love you to give me your knowledge on this. So Senate Bill 1 was passed in this past legislative session and is now going into effect, I believe. And I think part of what it does is it cuts a bunch of funding for really essential things like public schools and libraries and firehouses and all kinds of stuff. And it puts the responsibility on counties and to make up the pay cut. And the counties probably don't have the funds to support what the state used to support. So I'm seeing it in our local papers here in Harrison County, in the Clarion News. I'm seeing stuff like, there's like a wheel tax that we're going to have to add in the county. So when you get your license and when you go to the driver's license branch and pay for things are going to cost more than they used to, because that's one way the county can pay for what the state used to pay for. And then I think it's going to start hurting schools. I think our public schools, who have been defunded the last 20 years, are going to get even worse because the county is supposed to pay for stuff and the county doesn't have the money to pay for it. And I believe it's going to affect libraries. And I think the libraries have to get funding from the county. So can you clarify, because there's I'm speaking with people that this is affecting, that this is their job and they're worried about funding their libraries and their schools. And I'm just wondering if you can give us some insight in what in the world is happening because it seems bad and it seems scary.
Well, and another example I just heard yesterday was that our solid waste management districts, they've already been a couple, and I think one was in Floyd County, they're going to have to cancel their tax drops. So all that toxic material in our households that we can take somewhere to be safely disposed of, they're no longer going to be able to provide that because they've relied on property taxes.
Oh,
So
wow.
that big property tax reform bill ended up really nominally, if at all, helping homeowners with property taxes. It did provide, no surprise, more of a tax cut for businesses they have a very, 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 very low tax rate in Indiana across the board on all the taxes they pay to the
We
state.
seem to really, really like businesses and rich people a lot
Yeah,
better than
there's no
regular
balance.
Hoosiers in this
So
state.
there's just no balance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I believe there has to be balance. We want our businesses to thrive, but not just at the expense of
How much
users,
profit do they
right?
have to make?
We
How
have to
greedy do
balance
they got to
out.
be? I mean,
So this just threw up more out of balance so that our communities are going to really, really struggle. And if they don't increase local taxes one way or another, they're going to have to defund things. And whether that's closing hours at libraries or closing them down altogether, fewer firefighters, fewer police officers, and fewer teachers, it's going to be really hard. We just pushing the pain down to local level when the state used to cover that.
I really hope all local governments shine a light on who's doing this because it's not their fault. It's
That's
our
right.
state government, it's our governor, it's the state house, it's the state senate that has done this, and they did it hoping they can just push the blame on our county governments, and that is not fair to me. It's not their fault.
That's right. You're right. Yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling, right?
I am so thankful that you have a position of power in our state. I hope that you continue to run and that you keep fighting for us. And you are very brilliant and strong and brave, and you are a role model to me. You help me keep going. I know it is really hard to work at that state house. I'm friends with Wendy Danchesser. I ran for state house. I've really looked into what is it like having that job, and it's hard, everybody. And I would just love it if you would take a moment to give your appreciation to Representative Carey Hamilton, and also if you would follow her. Where can people follow you? You don't have to be in her district. You receive the benefit, the whole state does, of you being in this position. So do you have a website? Are you on Facebook? How can we find you?
I do. And first, Sarah, thank you for the very kind words. And thank you again for lifting up really important policy conversations. And also, I just want to do a shout out to Wendy, your friend and my friend, who
Love
is
her.
our new terrific state rep down.
She just got
in
like graded
Pennsylvania.
for doing a really good job for being brand new, which,
Yep.
yeah, love
Yep.
her.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I love meeting these strong, powerful women like yourself doing this hard work. It helps motivate me to keep going. Yeah.
Well, let me answer your question. I'm on Facebook and on all the other socials, Instagram and Threads, and even on Twitter, as painful as that can be sometimes these days. And it's just, put in my name. You've got it here. It's a funny first spelling.
Yes,
Carey.
Carey. Yeah.
And I'm easy to find. And people can reach out to me with questions at any time. I represent House District 87. But I also vote for every single Hoosier and care about the entire state of Indiana and love to hear from people. So thanks for giving me that opportunity to ask folks to reach out. This has been a lot of fun. This is good stuff. I look forward to coming back one of these days.
I'd really love to have you back on, especially when you have like a specific thing you're trying to get past that we need to shine a light on, and we need bipartisan support. I want to be a network where Republicans in power in Indiana feel comfortable coming on and discussing things. So hopefully by the time that happens, we have made some more connections with Republicans that are willing to come on. I bet I could ask Ed Clear. I think he might. I don't know. And so anyway, I'm really looking forward to helping push your good stuff in the future. And I'm just so thankful that you are doing this hard work. Have hope, everybody. Things are bad and they're going to get worse, but we can stop them in this next election.
We can. Have you shared? Let me just say this, Sarah. Have you shared what happened in Iowa recently?
No, what happened?
They had a special election for a state house seat. and it was a strong Republican seat, and it flipped strong Democrat. And now the Senate is controlled by Democrats. That's
news.
Iowa. Iowa's not a whole lot different than Indiana.
They're trying to gerrymander Indiana right now. We have 7 of our 9 congressional people, our Congress people, are Republican, and they want to gerrymander the district so it's 9 out of 9. But what may end up happening is what's happened in Iowa. It doesn't matter what lines you draw. Enough people in Indiana are pissed off at what these people in power are doing that they vote the other side. So bring it, these bad guys. We're feeling it. We're just going to keep telling everybody in the state. We're going to keep electing amazing people like yourself, and we're going to fix the state ourselves. We're going to be the change we want to see. We're not going to keep letting these people hurt us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We're on Substack, Project Next Indiana. Please go there and subscribe. You can get our episodes as emails. We're on podcasts. We're on Apple and Spotify. And then if you wouldn't mind sharing this episode with somebody who needs to know what's going on in Indiana, please do so, because we want to fix this beautiful state that we live in. And just thank you again so much for making time. I know you're really busy, and I wish you so much success.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate you.
Bye, everyone.